Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Wilbur Games YouTube channel, where today it is drawing ever closer to the start of UCL Fantasy time. So today we're going to be looking over the rules for the 2022-2023 season. Good refresher for everyone who's played it before, but also to engage with new players, because there's certain tweaks compared to other games, like for example FPL or other fantasy games like Sky. There's a few tweaks that we just need to get our heads around, and it's a kind of different format, not entirely, but quite unique in its format. So we just want to check up on the rules before we get into some team drafting. As ever, I appreciate everyone for watching this. I know we enjoyed the UCL content last season. If you like your FPL as well, we do a weekly podcast, so make sure you check those videos out on the channel as well. And as always, if you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. But we're going to dive straight into it, guys. So UCL Fantasy, as I say, it differs somewhat to a normal fantasy game. I think the key thing from my point of view with UCL Fantasy, and why I quite like playing UCL Fantasy, is it's because it doesn't take a huge amount of your time up. Because realistically, through the group stage, probably once every 2 or 3 weeks you need to change your team. So getting a good set team from the start and then using your chips effectively is the best way to really be engaged with this game. It doesn't take a huge amount of time and effort, so I like to play it alongside like FPL, which might take a lot more time. So I feel like the key with the UCL Fantasy is that you have the 6 match days, which is the group stage, and then after that stage you get a complete new team. You can make unlimited transfers after that period. So you definitely have to take the first 6 match days in like isolation, and then move on after that when you get into knockout stages, and you can do whatever you want with your team. So as with in general with a lot of fantasy games, you'll pick your squad of 15 players. You need the 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 forwards, and your initial budget will be 100 million for the group stage. From the round of 16 onwards, you'll get 105 million, because you might end up being able to only be able to pick from the bigger side. So there's a lot less budget picks to try and get a full team of 15 still playing. So it's important it goes up there. And then you can see here the max amount of players you can have for each club. Pretty standard to start with 3, and then as you progress through the different stages of the tournament, you can increase the amount of players you have from each team. Obviously, when you get to the final, limited pool of players, so you can have up to 8 players. So that just gives you a key idea of when you're first starting your squad. So that's good to know. And as I've already talked about with the match days, 6 match days is quite important to start with, and they're quite evenly spaced out. We'll take a look at the scheduling as we get through. So managing your squad as well. As with a general fantasy, you have 11 starting players and 15 total players. You can have a flexible formation again as usual, so you have to have at least 1 goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and at least 1 forward at all times. So very standard how you would see in FPL. I think a key with the deadlines before a game week is that it is the kick-off time of the first game of the match day. So it's always great in terms of team news if you want to target the very first fixture, or sometimes 2 fixtures of the game week. Say you've got Chelsea playing like a lower down team, just go on there, say Copenhagen for an example, like Chelsea against Copenhagen. You're not sure who's going to start for Chelsea. You see that like a Sterling starting, so you're knowing exactly who's going to be playing, especially when it gets like a match day 5 or 6. That can be really important, getting those starters right, and can be, well, give you some great boosts if you just get a player in there no one else is really thinking about, and they've got other fires to be putting out. So that's a one to look out for, which differs very much from like an FPL, which will be like an hour and a half before the first game, so it kind of eliminates the team news impact. And the key difference on UCL Fantasy is that you can make changes between the match days. So generally at the start of the tournament, you have match day 1, which will be over a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So on Tuesday, you can set your team, and you can also set a captain for that day. That'll be locked in for that one day. But say, or you keep the example, you had Sterling in your team, he got 0 or 1 points. You could then change your team on the Wednesday to bring some certain players off the bench, that player you've taken out, you will not get the points for. They will not be automatically subbed back in. So if you had someone on 6 points and you were going to gamble, and then the player you gambled on only got 1 point, you could not switch them back. So you'd be losing those 6 points and left with the 1. The same works for the captaincy. So we'll talk about a draft later on a future video where, for example, we might have Lewandowski and Benzema up front. You might put Benzema as captain one night. If he doesn't do well, you can change his captaincy for the second game, or sorry, the second day of the match day. If you weren't happy with your captaincy points, so that's a key bit that you can kind of, even when the match day has started, you can make tweaks between the 2 days. Well, at the start it will be 2 days. Later on in the tournament, it might even have a bigger impact depending on how they structure the knockout rounds. So that's a key difference, and one we just need to get a head around. So you kind of, in the match day, you have to be quite active as well between the days. So you don't just set it for the match day and then leave it. You have to keep an eye on how your team's doing over it. So when you get past that match day, it might be another 3 weeks till you get another set of fixtures, but it's just keeping your eye on it for that few days while you're going through it. So it's a key difference when it comes to that. So I've just kind of talked about the subs. So you have your normal subs, but you can basically make manual substitutions depending on how your team is done on the first day. So it's always really key when you're structuring your team. If you've got people playing on, like, say, the 6th of September, put all of those players into your starting lineup, because you can change them for players playing on the 7th of September. So I think the manual substitution is the way to go, really. So transfers, very similar to how you'd normally expect to see them, but there's key rules you need to see here. So before, obviously, when you're drafting your team, you can make unlimited transfers. During the group stage, on every match day, between every match day, you have a total of 2 per match day that you can use. You are able to carry over 1 transfer to the next match day. So you could spend 1 between match day 1 and 2, and then you'd have 3 for the match day 3. So you can carry 1 over. I think in the group stage especially, it's important to look at fixtures and change your team depending on how the fixtures fall. So you might have Benzema, who's got a great fixture the first game week, but then the second game week you might have Lewandowski, who you can make a quick change to, especially because you are given a few chips that we're going to talk about as well. You get a wild card and a limitless. So often, the strategy I've often deployed in the Champions League group stage is that it's always a pattern of how it falls. You will play 2 different teams in the first 2 fixtures, and then match day 3 and match day 4, you will always play the same team twice. So using my example from before, if Chelsea were playing like Copenhagen and you fancied Chelsea to do very well in those 2 fixtures because against weak opposition, I would be wildcarding for match day 3, doubling down on as many good assets you can for we've got favourable game week 3 and 4. So it can be important to use those 2 transfers like on a match day 2 to get the most benefit of those first 2 weeks. So like I said, you very much need to focus on the group stage, and then we'll think about the later stages. We'll probably do a video after the World Cup and after Christmas time to talk about the knockout round, but before Christmas and the World Cup we need to be thinking about that group stage. So 2 transfers per match day. Then after that you don't need to worry about it, but we also will have chips in there as well. So that'll be a natural time to talk about the chips. So the chips here, you can see you get 1 wild card, you get 1 limitless. Wild card, pretty self-explanatory. You keep the same budget, 100 million. You get unlimited transfers for that game week, but you will keep that team going forward. So a good example of what I just said, game week 3 is always a good time to wildcard in my opinion. So you will keep that team going forward to 3, 4, 5, 6 unless you use limitless or make transfers. So you have to stay within your budget as you would with your normal team. So that will be there for every match day, as we mentioned. Limitless, you'll get 1 of these as well. So I see this as kind of like a free hit. So you can put a team together for 1 week and you will reset back to your previous team the week after. So it's very much a free hit for that 1 week, but you also have an unlimited budget. So if you wanted to go full on all the premiums like KDB, Salah, Benzema, Lewandowski, a PSG asset, if you want to get all of them in, it's very difficult to squeeze all them premiums within the 100 million budget. So you definitely need a limitless if you want to go all in on those premium assets. It can often be difficult to gauge where you want to play the limitless. Probably need to look into how I want to work with a wild card, but my idea is always use the wild card in about game week 3, match day 3. So the limitless, it depends how you want to use it. Some may use it in like a match day 2, which I'm often hesitant about, or then use it in a 5 or 6, because 5 or 6 you get a lot of rotation, so you need those nailed assets who have got something to play for. So the limitless depends how you want to play with that, but we can dive into that as we go through. So yeah, wildcard and limitless are the 2 chips you get within there. So we've talked about the deadlines. Deadline is the first kickoff, as you can see here as well. So you've got kickoff time there, 6:45. I think that is 5:45 in UK time. So this is the deadline every time. So it's basically the kickoff of the first match. So it's good for lineups and getting the knowledge of, especially those first few weeks. You have standard leagues that obviously you can join, public and private leagues. And scoring points is the last bit I want to touch on. So a lot of the key scoring methods are the same as you would see in other fantasy games. So appearance, you'll get 1, 60 minutes on the pitch, you'll get another 1, so basically 2 points. You get an extra 1 point from scoring a goal outside of the box. Assists is very much the same with 3. But then we come down to these, which can be a lot more different to how we see in normal fantasy games. So every time a player recovers the ball 3 times, so generally be a tackle. So this is a great way that get use out of like a defensive midfielder, for example, like a Jorginho. Obviously he's got benefits of penalties, but every 3 ball recoveries he makes will get him a point. So it actually makes someone like Jorginho a valuable asset in this game, and other defensive midfielders, because they can clock up those. Even if they're say playing like a Real Madrid, he could recover the ball 12 times and get 4 points, which is something you can't see in like an FPL, because defensive midfielders really don't have much value, especially if they haven't got set pieces or penalties to take. So it's an interesting one I quite like, along with the game. Also good for defenders at the same time. So it might not always be the defenders who are going to get a clean sheet. You might rely on the ones that are good at tackling and getting ball recoveries. Player of the match award as well. I'm going to say often, UEFA award a player of the match at the end of every match. And if your player is that player, they will get a bonus 3 points on top of any points they've scored beforehand. So it's very much about half an hour after the game, you're trying to find out who's got player of the match, and it's normally announced on UEFA who's got player of the match, so you have to watch out for that one. So if your player scores a hat-trick, you might be in line for an extra 3 points, which is fantastic as well. There's also a nice little tweak on the penalties. So if your player wins a penalty, they will get 2 points. So often you see in like FPL, you could win a penalty and you could get an assist from it. If they miss that penalty, you don't get the assist points, but you're guaranteed these 2 points if you're fouled or create like handball in this situation. But then on the flip side, if you concede a penalty, you also get -1. Missing a penalty is -2, which is pretty standard. Yellow card -1, red card -3, own goal -2. Goalkeepers very much as you would normally see, but for every 3 saves, what we see as well, you get +1. Yeah, all very standard there. Defenders, exactly the same, 6 for a goal, clean sheets 4, -1 when you concede 2. Midfielders, as you'd expect as well. It also mentions down here that there's a certain tweak on the penalties. When a penalty is awarded for handball, no points are awarded. So it looks like they've made that tweak where if your player, for example, kicks it at the opponent's arm and it gets a penalty, that does not count as winning a penalty. I think it has to be an actual foul, which is a slight tweak from what we've seen before. So there's quite a few more ranges to points you can see. I think the ball recoveries, it's the ball recoveries, player of the match, and then winning a penalty are the 3 big ones for me. Like, obviously, if your player scores goal from outside the box, you're going to take that extra point. But like the 1 point doesn't make a huge amount of difference. So it's just one to keep an eye on. It can be decent. Obviously, if you've got a great long range shooter, it always helps there, doesn't it, really? So yeah, that was a bit of an overview I wanted to give, guys, obviously for new players coming into the game. And it's, I think, even for people who've played before, it's nice to have a bit of a refresher. So I think the key points there are, it's the focus on the group stage that we really want to be thinking about until we come back afterwards. You don't even need to focus towards your transfers towards the knockout stages. Let's concentrate on these 6 match days to start with. Pick the right squad to attack the fixtures, and just good luck with it. We're going to release a first draft. Well, my idea of a first draft. There could be some tweaks to that. We'll discuss some players. So make sure you check out that video. It'll be out shortly after this first video we're doing for UCL Fantasy. But for this video, guys, I appreciate you all for watching. Like I said, if you enjoyed the content, if you want to see more of it, please like and subscribe. It's really appreciated. Both are completely free. And I appreciate you all for watching. I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening, and I will speak to you very soon.